Welcome. Welcome to the webinar today, Thursday, March 24th. Today, the title of today's webinar is Personal Responsibility and Practice with Human Rights Attorney and PYP Mexico Director, Luisa Perez Escobedo. Thank you everyone for joining us. I will give a quick bio on Luisa. She is the founder and director of Prison Yoga Project Mexico. She is a human rights attorney and also has certifications in various yoga teaching methodologies, including trauma-sensitive yoga, Iyengar yoga, and Hatha yoga. Prior to fully focusing her career teaching yoga, she worked 15 years for several human rights NGOs and international organizations. And of course, we have James Fox, founder of Prison Yoga Project. He is a certified yoga instructor who has dedicated himself to developing a trauma-informed approach to teaching yoga in correctional facilities that has resulted in the establishment of yoga programs in prisons throughout US, Mexico, Europe, and Australia, and we're always expanding. A practitioner of yoga and mindfulness meditation for more than 30 years, upon receiving his teaching credentials in the year 2000, James began his mission of sharing the benefits of yoga with incarcerated people. I feel so honored to be in this webinar with you too. So I'll take a moment, take a little breath. And Luisa, if you would do us the honor of leading us in a centering, that would be beautiful.
Sure. Welcome everyone. It's also my honor to be here. So if you like, you can start choosing where to start your centering. It will be sitting or standing as you prefer. And you can also choose if you prefer to have your eyes closed or open, as you decide. And if you like, you could start moving your shoulders up and down at your own rhythm. Could be moving your shoulders up and down, or you could also move in circles. You can also move your shoulders in circles at your own rhythm. Whenever you want to come to your center, you can come back to a neutral position and maybe invite the movement to your chin, down towards your chest, or maybe up at your own rhythm. If it helps you to cultivate this movement, you can join your breath with each movement. And whenever you want to come back to your center, feel free to come back to your neutral form. This time, if you want, you can move your head towards one shoulder. If you like, you could also explore to move your chin up and down in this lateral form of your head. Maybe noticing any sensation in your neck. And at your own time, you could come back to your neutral form. And if you want to change from sides, you can move your head towards the other side. And maybe also invite your chin to move down and up. Whenever you want to come back to your center, you could come back to your center. And if you feel you need to move your head some way, feel free to move your head, your neck, as you require. Another possibility is also to invite to move your jaw as you prefer. Noticing if there is any small bone that needs to recollocate or accommodate. If you want also to make some pressure with your own fingers, maybe when line with your ears or any way around. Whenever you want to release the movement, you could take one hand to your chest, maybe the other in your belly. With your eyes open or close as you prefer. You could bring your attention towards the hand, your hand in your stomach. Maybe for 3 breaths, noticing any movement in that area of your torso, in your abdomen. In your next 3 breaths, you could focus on the movement in your chest, in the hand over your chest. Noticing any sensation in that area of your torso. The next 3 breaths, if you want, you can focus your attention on your nose and your nostrils. Noticing maybe the air coming in and coming out through your nose. And whenever you want to finish this centering, your centering could acknowledge every decision, every step you have made to be here in your own body, joining also this community. Whenever you want, come back to the screen, release your hands. Welcome back.
Muchísimas gracias, Luisa. Thank you very much. Oh, that was beautiful. All right. Well, James, I will leave the floor to you. Luisa, I'll be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, P.
Thank you so much, Luisa. You know, it reminds me that we all have this opportunity to learn from one another. And I just started back into San Quentin a couple of weeks ago. And I picked up a few cues from you in that opening that I want to use in my class next week. So it's this beautiful thing, you know, what we do with one another is that we're this collective of people who've committed ourselves to this work and to this study of trauma-informed yoga. And we're constantly learning as we go along because, you know, the field keeps opening up and we're exposed to more and more tools. So I just really appreciated the opportunity to be led by you and really appreciated the practice itself. It helps me to feel really grounded and fully present.
I was remembering what I have taught from you also in our in-person trainings. So I was also picking up. It's like sharing practice, right?
Yes. So welcome to everybody. Bienvenidos a todos. And I'm coming to you from Northern California, the original land of the coastal Miwok indigenous peoples. And I think it's important to acknowledge how closely we are connected in the Americas, North America with Mexico, with Central America and South America. You could look at the Americas as appendages, and that we really, we share the same land mass, but we're in different parts of the appendages. And so we're related. We definitely, you know, it's a beautiful thing that indigenous peoples of North America say, all my relations, when they offer a prayer or an offering. And so I feel that very much. I feel that very much with my relatives in a broader sense, my relatives in Mexico, my relatives in the other parts of the Americas, which is very distinct from Europe and from other parts of the world. I just finished reading a book actually about Mexico in the 1930s, and the book was set in Chiapas. And it was during the period of when Cardenas was the president of Mexico, and he was actually instituting new laws to provide rights for indigenous peoples. And there was that whole struggle of acknowledging the rights of the indigenous peoples and the privileged people of Spanish heritage who had come to Mexico. And of course, we're still struggling with those issues and acknowledging European supremacy over indigenous peoples. And we're very much involved in social justice, and particularly, you know, as we begin this conversation with Luisa today, you know, recognizing the work that's being done inside the penitentiaries and the correctional facilities in Mexico, the social justice issues in Mexico that she's been very much involved in for many years now. But before we get into that, I thought maybe for people who may not know of how you originally got connected with us, Luisa, and how we originally met, if you'd kind of walk us through the chronology of your involvement with the Prison Yoga Project.
Sure. Very nice memories. Thank you for bringing in. When I decided to quit my job in human rights and just focus on in teaching and practicing and learning yoga, I always wanted to move it in a prison environment, no? Which was familiar for me in my previous job. I always ask myself, like, why yoga could be only for privileged people who can pay a nice yoga studio in a nice area in the city, and not why being an easy practice, like you don't need anything except for a mat, if so, maybe a book or maybe someone who guide you for the first period of time. But why being so practice so beneficial for health, mental health, physical health, emotional health? It's only offered for certain people here in the city. So I always ask myself, why not people in prison? Why not people who are also struggling with a lot of issues like people outside? And when I came back to Mexico, I already have a couple of certifications as yoga teacher, and I felt that I was already ready to go and teach, no? Because I already have been in India, and I already have my formal certificates, and I have already been teaching outside. I say, like, I'm ready, and something the opportunity came, so I could came into prison. But I realized that the effect of the class that I was teaching was not the same inside as outside. The communication, the interaction, and also the effect in the people was not the same. I saw the guys coming or leaving as anxious as they came at the beginning of the class. So I said, like, no, I'm missing something. Like, I don't know this. I have to make like a self-recognition. Like, I'm not able. I'm not certified. I don't know how to teach there. I'm missing something. So that's why I found you. And I enrolled in your first training I could that year. And I bring your book. Well, first, during the 3 days training, I was so impacted on the effect I had in my body. Like, why it was like a simple yoga sequence in my Iyengar world. Like, this was so simple, no? Why I'm feeling so relaxed and so rested at the end of the class and the end of the day, like, what's there, no? What I'm not seeing. But that was my own my own speech, my mental speech at that moment. And when I came back to Mexico and I went to the same prison I was already teaching, with the same group, same location, and I follow your sequence, the simple or the basic one, like by the book. Okay, like, I remember I have my notes there, and I say, like, okay, next we will do this, and then this, and then and the room was very crowded. It was a very chaotic environment. There was not really like an organization for that class. It was like all like a packed room with like 40 men in one single room. But I could see the first row clearly, and 5 guys there. And at least 2 or 3 were at the end of the class sleeping or very relaxed, like disconnected. In that moment, I say like, this is what I need. This is what is required here. Not my alignment or my props or my manual adjustments. This is what is required. And then, yeah, I you hook me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I remember so well. So you came to the training that we offered in the Washington, DC area. That would have been in 2016. And you were the very first person that I met who came to the training, because you might remember myself and Rob Schwer pulled up in the car and you were walking past. And I said, hello, are you going to the training? And you said yes. And that was when we first met. And then after the training, as I recall, you had contacted me and said, I'd like to come and visit you at San Quentin. I'd like to experience your class at San Quentin. So I believe that happened in early 2017. And by August of 2017, you had organized meetings with correctional administrators in Mexico, and also our first teacher training. And really that officially launched Prison Yoga Project Mexico. And it was because of your contacts that you had as a human rights attorney that you had access to these top administrators in both the federal system in Mexico and the state system in Mexico City. And we were able to partner with Yoga Espacio, with Dakini of Yoga Espacio. And we were able to begin our relationship, for which I have such fond memories. I really actually miss my annual trips to Mexico, because I have such fond memories, primarily of the people, of the people who are involved, of the facilitators, our Prison Yoga Project facilitators there, and Dakini, and really appreciate the work that you've been able to carry on through the COVID pandemic. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about what you've been able to do during the COVID pandemic. And then maybe we can get into, kind of the meat of what we wanted to talk about, which is the care that we need to take in facilitating classes. But I wondered if you could share with everybody what you've been able to do through the pandemic to keep programs alive, and how you've integrated restorative justice practices into that.
Sure. Well, really, since the beginning, since 2017, I think like the time and the opportunities were just like there, like suddenly open here and there and there. It was, yes, because of my contacts, but there were people that I have never been working with. It's because someone who met me recommend with someone who was there and there and there and there. But there were like people already like waiting for the opportunity to open us the door. It was really people, of course, with Dakini in Yoga Espacio. That was like our main umbrella in the beginning. Like she support us like like if we were part of the Yoga Espacio. And I know we are now part of their vision. And from there, like having the doors open, not having to convince or anyone, because there were people really wanting to include something different of what they have been doing. And people who have the vision and sensitivity and creativity to think different of the system. So we have been working in federal prisons, in a maximum security prison in El Altiplano, also in a federal prison in Morelos, which is focused only for rehabilitación psicosocial, psychosocial.
Psychological, yes, psychological, social issues, yes.
Mm-hmm. And also now during the pandemic, another federal prison invited us to start a program there. Of course, the pandemic lock or suspend every activity we have, not only here in Mexico City or at federal level, but also in the state of Veracruz, in 2 local or state prisons there. But after some months, this maximum security prison, federal, in Toluca, in El Altiplano, they told us like, okay, we can continue online and we can continue yoga classes, yoga program, and also the restorative circles we have been doing there before the pandemic. No, we have been doing circles in person for a year or so. And in Veracruz, in this other federal prison, they also asked us this year to start the 2 programs, yoga classes and restorative circles. So yeah, we are now, even though regular activities are still canceled inside, like external people are not able to do the regular activities we used to do in the past, we can continue, or we can do it online. So every week we do classes in Veracruz and also El Altiplano.
Can you explain to people what the restorative circles are like? What kind of topics you cover? And so these are the same people who are in the yoga program are in these restorative circles, yes. And who's facilitating them with you too?
Yeah, that's another blessing. So the restorative circles are, as you may know, in the framework of restorative justice, looking to change the paradigm of justice, not to focus on the punishment, but focusing on the needs created after the conflict, not only for the victim, but also for the offenders, involving the community. So in the restorative, in the circles with men are people who have already been condemned, like already have a sentence. This program is completely separate from their legal process. In different, or it's not like in the US that this could help them to achieve their freedom. No, there are completely separate process. The judge doesn't include or take in consideration all the programs they are doing. Also because the guys in federal prisons are accused for federal crimes, which doesn't have any benefits of release in advance or something like that. This is very different from the US system. So what we do there is meeting once per week, 3 hours, with 10, 15 guys who want voluntarily to participate, to talk mainly where do they learn violence, because no one born being violent. We all learn it. So we talk about where do they learn it, how they suffer it, because many times they first suffer it. They were victims as child or as teenagers, or before perpetrating violence against other people. And also considering or reflecting about the damage they have caused against other people. Even though they don't know their names, they don't know the amount of people were involved in the, or were affected by their drugs or traffic or whatever. We have that conversations. We also give them tools on emotional intelligence, how to manage feelings, emotions, shame, which is very strong or present there, even though not open feeling, but it's there all the time. How to manage in a reintegrative way, not as a humillante, not as something that put them down, but how they can work with that feeling to become responsible of their acts, and how they can also process all the losses they have there, not only their freedom, but also their family relationships. They all have people who have been dying outside while they were inside, and all those inconclusive duelos, inconclusive.
Yeah. All those.
Grieving.
Yes, right.
Yeah, give them tools how to manage those emotions and moving out of the violent patterns they are, but mainly how they can find a different identity than violence.
You know, it's really interesting. I remember many years ago, we had a major television station in San Francisco come into San Quentin to interview some of the guys. And they were talking to guys who were in the yoga program and were also doing the restorative justice work, victim offender education. And they interviewed this one guy and they said, well, what does yoga have to do with all of this restorative justice and violence prevention and everything? And he said, you know, all of the things that I'm learning in the victim offender group and in the violence prevention group somehow come together for me from doing yoga. And it's not like we talk about it while we're practicing yoga, but what he was really talking to, and of course, all of these things inspired me, kept inspiring me to like, okay, I'm on the right track here, of understanding the importance of the embodiment work, and that without the embodiment work, and of course, this is the fundamental principle of trauma-informed yoga and trauma therapy, right? That without involving the body, as in van der Kolk's, the body keeps the score, without involving the body, it's not a complete understanding. It's not a complete integration of personal responsibility, you know, for the harm that one caused. And what I feel, and maybe you could talk about this too in your experience, what I feel what yoga helps people to do is to develop some sensitivity, to break through that wall of insensitivity, and from the movement and the breathing and the practices that we do to become more sensitive to themselves so that they can recognize, oh, I've caused harm to myself and I've caused harm to other people. So I'm wondering if you see that same thing. And also, maybe this is the maybe this is the link to you talking about how important it is for us not to create more harm in the yoga practices that we bring into the facilities.
Yeah, absolutely, James. We when we work with the body in the yoga, we help the nervous system to move out of the survival mode, no, the defensive mode, and we also help the body to not react as in a permanent danger situation, no? To feel safe in their own bodies. And one of the things of violence is very similar than trauma. Like violence is equal than trauma. And that affects the body, the mind, our feelings, our thoughts. No? It affects all of our sphere as human beings. Any trauma experience, no? Or any violent experience they have had in their childhood, teenagers, in their detention, in their prison environment, which is the more violent you are, the more respectful you will be.
Yeah.
So all this affects the body first. So when we start working with the a practice who help the body to release all that extra energy, extra cortisol, extra, I mean, their bodies will keep dysregulated in prison. Like that's not normal for people to be in jail. No, that we are not born or we are not made to be in jail. So their nervous system will be dysregulated. That's what we found there daily or whenever we go there, even though they smile or they say, oh, hi, yes, I'm fine, etc. We know the nervous system, it's always like in a survival mode, and that's fine. Like that's their coping mechanisms, not to pathologize anyone. That's the normal reaction. But at least during the 1 hour, 1 hour and a half practice, they can have a different experience in their bodies. They could have different relationship with their own bodies. And yes, that creates more sensitivity about what's going on there. And that opens the door to imagine what's going on in my relationship with other people, or what's the other person feeling or thinking or experimenting. That's empathy.
Yes.
And empathy, as you know, is open door for restorative practice, anything, any kind. So we do this. Also, I want to mention Marco Villa, Sergio González, Jaime Rodriguez, who are Mexicans who learn how to facilitate circles inside. And now in Mexico, in Freedom, they accompany me and other colleagues to talk about their experience. They always say, I am not here to teaching you anything. I'm here to share my experience, share what I have learned, what have been useful for me, and you decide if you take it or not. So this is, and that's super powerful, that guys inside see this hope of these guys outside who had been there, who had been experimenting very similar things inside, even though they are different countries or different systems. Imprisonment is the very same.
Yeah, so these were men who were incarcerated in the US, and they became involved in restorative justice practices while they were incarcerated. And they were also involved in yoga while they were incarcerated. And then they were deported to Mexico. And now they're working with you. Yeah,
Exactly. Mhm.
beautiful circle.
Yeah, we are very privileged to have them in our team, and yeah, they are keep willing to stay in contact and do this service. Now they are here and they have recovered their freedom, their physical freedom.
So I wondered if you talk a little bit about one of the things we were talking about is the purpose of this meeting was the responsibility that we have as yoga facilitators, and of course why this is so important that yoga teachers who want to do this work are trained properly. Just this past week I saw an email from a yoga teacher who was going into a high security prison in a state here in the US. And she wasn't affiliated with Prison Yoga Project, but one of the things that she said in her email was, well, any kind of yoga is going to be beneficial for people who are incarcerated. And it was like, oh, no, please. Because oftentimes people don't understand that if you take the wrong approach, you can do more harm than good, particularly given what you just said about how dysregulated people are who are incarcerated, how their nervous system is so on edge, and how you can re-stimulate all that past trauma by introducing practices that are contraindicative. So I know from not only from your training with Prison Yoga Project, but your training with trauma sensitive yoga, you've got a really deep understanding of these things.
Yeah, we have like the idea or the general idea that all yoga cures. No, if you keep practicing, you will gain back your health, your mental or emotional stability. Like yoga cures everything. No, we have this nice idea, and yeah, it's like a nice idea. That's it. But we need to be very aware where we are when we move into a prison. No, it's a different but similar world than here. We can, as you said, cause much more harm inside than benefit them. But if you have been inside, you might notice, or you might agree that everything you offer inside will be welcome. We have an audience. Anything you want, cooking class, dancing class, whatever anyone wants to offer, there will be people who will feel grateful for it and will welcome you. And also because of the difficult situations they are there and all the emotional needs that are there, people inside might be willing to do whatever you ask them to do. Whatever. Headstand. Try this one hand and this the other hand. But we need to be clear that the system, the prison system, is an oppression system, which it's created not to rehabilitate, but to punish people, to punish. That was the idea. Their origins were like, okay, we will not do these awful tortures in the center of the town, no? in La Plaza, but we will keep them inside some jail. That will be their punishment. And then with time, people say like, okay, we cannot keep talking about punishment. Let's talk about rehabilitation and let's talk about changing and cure them. And while they are inside or in prison. But the system is created to oppress, to supreme their personalities. So if we don't want to be part of that system, we need to be really clear what we are going to do there. If we are going to keep offering premios y castigos, like the rabbit and or the
carrot and the yeah.
Like premios will be like not gifts, but like I need help with my English. Premios, yeah, rewards.
Rewards, yeah.
Exactly. And that's very common also in yoga class. Yes, you're doing great. Yes, you can keep practicing, keep doing, or no, you are not doing well. No, look how bad you have that hip and that shoulder, and that you are not doing well, and that's very easy to repeat in a yoga class.
Yeah.
Not only with our verbal or our sequence but also with the adjustments, like touching people. Yeah, they will be very grateful to be touched because the hypersensitivity or lack of sensitivity or lack of human touch they have, yes, they will not say no.
Right, just to get the attention. Yes, yeah. All
this, it's like in unconscious, unwilling maybe, but also very naive, becoming part of that system of oppression.
Yes, yeah, of hierarchy of you're the teacher and these are the students, rather than meeting people and saying, okay, how can we create an environment for healing? And it's interesting, while you were talking before, I really like to use the title of Van der Kolk's book sometimes to start my class. The body keeps the score. So all of the things that have happened to you before you got to prison, when you had a criminal lifestyle, when you grew up, all of those things, unless you've had the opportunity to release those things, you hold those things in your body. And then you come to prison and you're in this environment and you still are holding those things in your body. Or as Josephine is fond of saying, you're in a situation of trauma on simmer. It's just constantly under the surface. So I always have felt that what's most important about the yoga practice is to provide people the opportunity to feel what they feel when they do the practice. Forget about what it looks like. All of us who are certified yoga teachers and trained yoga teachers have gone through all of the adjustments and the perfect form of yoga, which there is no such thing. As Paul Grilly's video of everybody is different. So there is no such thing as a perfect pose, because everybody's body is different. But what's most important is for people to experience what it is that they're feeling while they're in a pose, while they're breathing, and to unlock that. It's like you're providing an opportunity to unlock that path inward, in interoception, right? That path inward to begin to feel and to experience so much more than just the thoughts that are going through your head and the constant, particularly people who are incarcerated, the constant state of reactivity that that people are in, or when it goes to the extreme that they're basically collapsed, right? That the extreme of the stress of being incarcerated and of trauma is that there's immobilization. So maybe tell us a little bit about some of the practices that some of your favorite practices that you incorporate into your sessions.
Like in the sequence, or like in the, or general, like meditation, or?
Yeah, just general, what are your movement practices look like? What kind of breathing practices, if you do any kind of breathing practices, what are those practices?
So first, I will always try to remember before I go inside, like what I want to do with the power I will have as the yoga teacher inside. No, if I want to use that power to tell them what to do, or if I will use that power to invite them to feel their own body. I don't want to replicate the first scenario. Tell them what to do. That the custody will do, the authorities will do, their own inmates will do each other. I don't want to be part of that
dynamic
of instructing for their well, for their help, for their own benefit, or for their own
bienestar,
yes.
well-being. Yeah.
No, I will always try to move out of that, because it's very attractive. No, I will be there to help them to heal. I will be there to help them to cure or to rehabilitate or whatever. That's very attractive. No, think you have the power to heal people. But once I have that like almost present and clear all the time, before and during the class, because there also will be dynamics, I will start in online, mainly like in a form they could see me, not on the floor, not lying down, but standing. Many of them like come to the class and they are already standing on their mats. So I will start standing, moving, yes, some of the joints, like not jumping directly, no, like moving some of the joints before, but also inviting some muscular effort, like bending their knees, standing, no, bend their knees, arms up or down, and not even warrior with hips open, just one foot in front, one front foot back, inviting movement, or standing, no, like bending, like trying to involve big muscles first,
yeah.
so they can discharge all the cortisol and all the extra energy they live with.
So you're engaging sympathetic nervous system by doing this, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Also with some pauses, like if we do some exercise or some effort, I will include some pause. Okay. Yeah. Give yourself a pause, breathe. I will ask how you feel your body, what you feel now. Just not at the beginning. It is not like a centering, like a start just noticing your breath. If you notice today, I start moving the arms, moving shoulders, moving head. I will invite movement first and then pause. And then again, movement, and then maybe the final rest.
So this is this balancing of sympathetic with parasympathetic, with action and non-action, to try to regulate the nervous system, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And mainly, I used to work in the past, like they could help each other, but first I realized they couldn't help each other. Like they will do they could even harm themselves because the other guy will
Right.
be pulling a leg or
Right.
so I said like, okay, no, this pair is not helping, like for the purpose, but also because I realized how triggering could be to touch someone else's body.
Yeah.
Not only me touching a guy body or the man body, but also in between them. Like, I don't know what memory I will activate. Trigger. So
Yeah.
if I inviting them to do whatever they need to do to lift their arm, it could be bent elbow, it could be straight elbow, whatever they need to. But if I then go and correct and say like, no, this is the perfect angle on this and that, like, what was the invitation? No, it was not a real invitation. So mainly those, and yes, at the end, I will give space for to rest. I will not say relaxation, I will not say shavasana or anything like that, but just space to rest if they want, sitting, lying down, whatever they prefer. And not at the beginning, but after some months of practice, I will start introducing some short intentions / meditations. If they want or they feel like to bring some intention or to think about someone or something that helps them to connect with whatever unsolved emotional
Yes.
issue they could have.
Yeah. So one of the questions that we often get and is you're a woman who has been serving mostly incarcerated men, right? Although you did do the program with sexually trafficked women. What are some of the challenges? I guess it's kind of a dual question of what are some of the challenges that you may have experienced as a woman going in when you were able to go in and teach men? You're going into these maximum prisons. And the second thing is, well, let's just stay with that. What have some of the challenges been, and or how do you look at that? What's your feeling about that?
Well, of course, the power dynamic again, it's at play there.
Yeah.
Being a woman, being white, being the clothes or using the clothes I use, and they notice the privilege that I have been born with. So that's, I think, the first one. Like for me, realize what are my own privilege that I will carry in every time I'm there, and how I relate with myself to not, again, to give them back the power, not hold it. So once I am conscious or working on that permanently, it's not like a work done. It's like a permanent personal reflection. And also, how can I be like clear on my boundaries, why I'm there, what I'm looking for, what I'm not looking for, very clear from the beginning. Yes, and also like finding the way to communicate that keep establishing some distance. Like I will not put myself in a place that allows them to think I'm able for a personal or close relationship. So from the clothes I'm using, like all floppy, you will say.
Yeah,
All,
the movement.
yeah, but the movements I do, like I will not expose my body in the practice. Like we all practice together. I'm not showing you how to do this or that. And also being clear whenever someone approach me for, can you talk to this or can you do that? No, I can't. No, I can't. Like a clear no. Not like a, oh no, sorry, I can't. I don't. No, I can't. No, like be also clear whenever the boundary wants to be challenged. But I try to keep it like to manage myself or with my colleagues, not involving the authorities, because that always make it worse.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the boundaries and the expectations are my own responsibility.
Yes. You know, this is first, I'm so appreciating just being with you again, Luisa. You know, aside from this being a webinar, I'm just appreciating the conversation. And I'm thinking to myself, we could do a whole other webinar on your experience as a human rights attorney. And I want the people on the webinar today to understand the depth of experience that you have had working with these injustice issues and the social issues of Mexico. You've been on the front line in many respects, and then you made this shift to provide, and I do use the term, yes, I understand. We don't go in there thinking that we're healing, that we're healers, but we do have the intention of establishing an opportunity for people to heal what the wounds that they carry. And I thought, you know, before we turn things over for questioning, I thought I'd ask you like a really big question. And that is, if you could share with people what you feel, and I know this is a difficult one, but what you feel Mexico is dealing with as a country in 2022, and the biggest issues that Mexico is dealing with, and the strengths of Mexico and the weaknesses. I know this is a huge question, and I'm asking you to answer it in 5 minutes. But if you could give people some perspective, because people don't have a really clear perspective on what's really going on there. They don't really understand that our sister across the border, you know, what's really going on there. And I just wonder if you could share with us from your vast experience and understanding.
Well, it is not, I could resume that it is based in social inequities. Our daily realities are based in social inequities, like very cruel and yeah, social inequities, I will say. Like it depends where you're born to say what type of life you will have. If you will have problems with drugs or addictions, or you will, like, it depends. There are no social opportunities for everyone. So it depends where you live and how it might rule how you will live. And that increments with all the violence that you might heard in the news, like the organized crime, violence. at the beginning, when I started this work, I was thinking that this type of service was one tool to improve, foster, or to change that reality of violence we live in. But last year, actually, in 2 days will be 1 year ago, that my brother-in-law was murdered in a robbery outside of his house. And in that moment, I realized that no, my nice or my joyful work or service I have in prison doesn't impact the levels of violence we live in the streets, or the all the violence, the society, the violent society we live in. It doesn't impact directly, but it helps me, at least me, to understand more about violence. Every time I listen their stories, every time I listen their efforts they are doing to move out of those patterns, despite all the contexts they have are against them to keep them in those violent
tendencies. Yes.
tendencies. So at least for me, it helps me to understand violence, how we can become, or how people can become on those levels of destruction. But also helps me to heal on my own personal story of my own traumas. It heals me to be in front of guys trying to heal themselves or to become different.
Yeah.
It serves me also. Like,
yes.
I could support their path, or I can watch their healing process. I can become a witness of their process, because no one heals in isolation. We need this community. But it also heals me to understand, and also my own personal wants. No, it represents me a lot to be in front of these guys.
Yeah. I really feel you, you know. I mean, that's where I feel the same thing as a man, you know. I feel the same thing from the work that I've done. You know, and that the circumstances are also the same. I mean, the economic disparities are very different between Mexico and the US. But what you're talking about in terms of developmental trauma, you know, where you're born, what opportunities you have, same situation here in the US with marginalized people, marginalized communities, a certain segment of the population that gets wealthier and wealthier and wealthier, and the rest of the population suffers. But I think what you've put your finger on, and then we will open up for questions. I think what you've put your finger on is kind of the path of karma yoga, right? And I say that without making it a big deal. Like, oh, you know, look what we're doing. We're going in and we're doing this service and we're healing ourselves and other people. If you're called to do this work, you know, if it's your path, it's your path. And it definitely is a different path in what's considered to be regular yoga, right? The yoga out in the world, most of public yoga is so different than what we're talking about. But I think you do point to something that's really important, And that is that the healing opportunity that it presents for us to be able to do this work. It's a privilege. It's a privilege to be able to do this work. It's an honor and how many people are allowed into these environments? So we become witnesses. We're witnesses to this underbelly of what's going on in society. And with that comes privilege and responsibility. So I really appreciate what you've brought out. I think the biggest thing for me, what I'm taking away today from you, is recognizing the level of privilege that we bring into these environments, and being very conscious of this as yoga facilitators, and not not recognizing that. So Priscilla, why don't we open things up? I think there's some people that Jackie has raised her hand, and maybe you could allow her in to ask a question.
Yeah. Oh, thank you both so much for this beautiful conversation. Jackie, I noticed your hand was up a bit ago. So if you want to let me know if you have a question, please put it in the chat box if you'd like to chat. You can also put in your questions in the Q&A app. You'll see the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, but you can absolutely put in your question in the chat box. Gaia asked a question. Do you ever speak to the students about not instructing or the power dynamic? Is this a topic that you verbalize with the participants?
Not really. I will only say all we will do here is an invitation. Feel free to follow what I'm doing or do another thing with your body. But I will recall, I will insist or emphasize that every single class, like everything is an invitation. I don't want them to be more aware. I mean, they know their power dynamics inside. So I don't want to make them think about that in their yoga classes. I will just say all we do is an invitation, and that's it. I don't know about you, James.
Yeah, no, it like you said, it's more of an invitation. I mean, I have the opportunity to even become somewhat playful as a man with other men. You know, I have the opportunity to become kind of playful. Hey guys, let's do this together. Let's do this together. Let's take the opportunity. One of the things I like to say is, you know, with this 75 minutes that we have together, maybe you could take the opportunity to leave prison. You know, and I'll say, I've left my world to come in here to be with you guys. And I've done this by choice. I really enjoy this. I really enjoy being here with you guys. This is important. This is important for me. So let's take the time to kind of let go of what's going on outside of our lives and dive into this practice together. And then it becomes more, we're more connected, you know? And yeah, and particularly, again, I've got this opportunity, but you can, of course, having a sense of humor is very important, whether you're a man or a woman teaching on the inside. It's really important to have that sense of humor to kind of keep things light in a very, very heavy environment.
Beautiful, thank you.
Yeah.
We have a question from Michelle. She asks, for those either based in Mexico City or planning to move there, which she is, and want to get involved, what is the biggest need in the PYP Mexico chapter?
thank you, Michelle. More than welcome to join us. What will I say? Maybe how to make us sustainable, how to keep offering some payment to the teachers or the facilitators who would like to make this service, because people will do it maybe for some months, maybe for some 1 year or 2, but we don't want to be always based on their goodwill of people, no, or in their volunteer work, because now we are in that phase, no, that we want to move from the volunteer work where you need to depend on what time the teacher it's available, at what time they can do this or that. So that gives us like a very unstable structure. So now we want to invite people to also receive some payment for their work, because yeah, it's great that we all have good heart and karma will pay back and whatever you want. But also we want to make like a more organizational work, no?
Yeah, this is to sustainability. I think you're speaking of the sustainability and also to the value that people are recognized, the facilitators who've been trained and going in, that they're recognized for the value that they're providing and that they're getting some kind of payment. Yeah. And of course, I think I would also add to that, Luisa, that if Michelle is interested in getting involved, that she contact you.
Yes, please.
Yeah, that there are opportunities and that there are trainings that are being offered in Mexico City, and yeah.
Definitely. I feel like that's a good place to talk about. You're also offering the foundational training in Spanish. And I know that has been a great help to, helping get closer to sustainability. Every enrollment helps the organization. And it's amazing. So if you're a Spanish speaker, or if you know someone who's a Spanish speaker interested in this work, we do offer the foundational training in Spanish. Luisa, do you want to share a little bit about how you do the circles, the live Zoom meetups? Because it's really interesting. I've gone to a couple and they've been really, really, really great. And I'll drop the link to the course.
Yeah, we have, the online course, you can do by your own, at your own time, your own rhythms, but we also have like bi-weekly meetings with all the participants online, and we invite some people who are doing this type of work in some other countries in Latin America, in Colombia, in Costa Rica, Argentina, and also one guy here from Mexico who learned yoga in prison and now is released, and now is also teaching outside. So we want to share experiences, like how do they do this and that, or and also after the course is done, we open a free study group every week for 2 months to practice the methodology of teaching, how to handle a group, or how to start a program, or how to introduce to programming in your community, all those kind of questions that you may have.
Something I found really special about one of the Zoom meetings I went to is you had a participant who was incarcerated before. So he was incarcerated before, he has now gained his freedom, and he joined your class, and all the students, all the participants are wanting to go inside and do this work. And so they were able to ask him questions, which poses did y'all like inside? Did you like a long class, short class? So that's something that I thought was really special about how you do this course. So
Yeah,
thank you.
it's a privilege also to have Juan teaching us.
Yeah. We have another question from Andrea. Do you think that some of the people you've met in prison could have avoided it if they were exposed to yoga and various embodiment techniques as a child? I'm curious how introducing yoga to the school system in America can help create a more peaceful society if we reach them during their developmental years. Thank you for today's program. Thank you, Andrea.
Well, I think if you, Luisa, I think because she's referring to introducing yoga to the school system in America. I don't know if that's happening in Mexico, if they're introducing yoga to younger people, but it seems to be very much of a growing phenomenon. Not only yoga, but mindfulness curriculums. There are many, many people and organizations that are creating mindfulness curriculums for grade schools, so that young people are being introduced to mindfulness practices and embodiment practices. And there's no guarantee, but I would think that this would definitely have an impact on people and their development if they're able to be exposed to mindfulness practices and yoga at an early age. And we're finding more and more that we're being offered the opportunity to work with youthful offenders here. And it just makes sense that if we can offer these practices to people at a younger age before they move into adulthood and into criminal activity as a result of exposure to trauma, that we may have the opportunity to intervene, to interrupt that path. And I'm sure there's been studies that have been done on this too. So the answer is yes, I think definitely it would have an impact. And but the question is, well, how do we provide those opportunities to people who are living in these marginalized communities and going to schools and school systems that are underfunded and I mean, that's the key. And then of course, the other key is you can do all the yoga and all the mindfulness practices, but if you return home to an environment that's a trauma impacted environment, it's not going to have much of an impact on you. You may learn some skills, but it's going to be much more difficult if your home environment is a trauma adverse environment.
Yeah, totally agree, James. And yeah, here, at least in Mexico, there are programs who have been offering, but basically in private schools, again, like social inequity.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll switch over to the chat box for a question real quick from Julianne. Are you associated with any re-entry programs for participants involving trauma-sensitive yoga that prepare them for release or support them when reintegrating into society and family?
Yes. Well, before the pandemic, we were also teaching in a program in an institute, official institute that is focused for
Reintegration, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Reintegration. And this teacher who learned yoga inside was teaching that program. Yeah, now with the pandemic, it suspended, and then authority changes and we stopped the program. But yeah, this is something we also want to offer to people moving out from jail.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. This has been such a beautiful conversation. And again, I'm so honored that I was able to be here and participate with you too. Being mindful of time. If you have any questions or comments or want to get connected in any way, please send us an email. I'll drop it in the chat again, info@prisonyoga.com or .org. Thank you so much for joining us. It's such an honor to offer these webinars, and it's such an honor to see you come, both the hosts, the panelists, and every participant. We thank you so much. I would like to just do like a quick breathing, if that's okay with everyone.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Please.
Maybe if you would like to close your eyes or soften your gaze. If you feel called to it, you can place your hands on your chest, maybe one on your chest, one on your stomach. And let's just do 3 breaths. It's collective breathing together. Something I find so special, even though we're in the Zoom world, is when we do a collective breathing like that, I feel connected to everyone, no matter where you are in the world. I know we have folks on the other side of the planet, different countries, all the time zones, I'm sure. Again, thank you so much, James. Thank you, Luisa. Thank you, everyone.
Gracias, Luisa.
Gracias, Priscila. Gracias, James.
Que te vayas bien.
Gracias.
Nos vemos pronto.
Seguro. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for
Gracias.
joining us.
Ciao.